Hello there, and welcome to this week's broadcast. I am Anne LaFollette, and I am a surface pattern designer and an online educator. And I thought I would switch things up a bit this week and talk to you about my 3 favorite books right now. Many of you know me and you know my backstory, which is that I had a very long corporate career until all of a sudden, very unexpectedly, I got laid off in my late 50s. When I was in that corporate environment and I got my typical 2 weeks of vacation every year, I would read fiction. I would like a page turner, something that would take my mind off work, was really easy to get through. Something maybe like Sue Grafton's Alphabet series. And that series, if you're familiar with it, is about Kinsey Milhone, who is a hard-boiled detective, and she lives in a fictitious town in Southern California. But when I had to reinvent myself, and now for the past almost 4 years, I've been running my own online creative business, I read more business books or self-actualization books. So I wanted to share 3 of my favorites right now because I think you'll find them super valuable. Now, the first is by Tara Moore, and it's called Playing Big. And I actually have met Tara Moore because she and I both are members of a beautiful co-working space in my tiny little town called Mill Valley. This beautiful co-working space is called the Hivery. And because, of course, we still are in the middle of the pandemic, the co-working space is not open. However, there's still fantastic programs that are available virtually at thehivery.com. So you can definitely check that out. And then also I'll leave links below this video to both Tara's book, Playing Big, and to the audiobook because I'm a big fan of audiobooks. And Tara narrates the book herself. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the book and why I love it. It is very much focused on how when we are finding ourselves managing through change, especially if we're trying to figure out kind of what we're going to do next, we frequently have voices inside our head that are telling us that it's going to either be too difficult or there's a lot of self-criticism or there is this inner critic. And Tara's program, Playing Big, which actually is both a book and it's actually an online course, which you can check out at taramoore.com, she addresses all of these inner voices and how we need to make peace with these inner voices because they're never going to go away, but we are going to be able to manage through them if we use some techniques and some tips that she shares with us. So she's amazing. You can read more about her story as well on her website, taramoore.com, and I highly recommend the book. And in fact, if you fall in love with her entire process, you can actually learn to become one of her facilitators, like a paid facilitator coach. So that's the first book that I wanted to recommend to you today. Now, the second one has a similar theme. It is by Britt Barron, and it's called Worth It. And the subtitle is actually Overcome Your Fears and Embrace the Life You Were Meant For. Now, I have not met Britt in person. However, she was the MC at a fabulous live event that I went to last year that was hosted by Amy Porterfield. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Amy Porterfield's, and every year, if you have purchased one of her programs, she has a live event in San Diego that's called the Entrepreneur Experience. And I went to it last year in 2019 and actually I've signed up for it for 2020, but I don't know if it's going to happen because, of course, live events are not happening right now because of the pandemic. But it's supposed to happen late in the year. So I'm hoping that by the time October, November, December rolls around, that she'll actually be able to do it in person. However, that is not the point of the story. Britt Barron was her MC, and Britt is full of energy. She's a firecracker. She's also one of the most joyful and happy people I have ever met. And her story of transformation and realizing what she wanted to do with her life and how to embrace her true self is an amazing story to read about. And many of her themes are similar to Tara's in terms of how much self-criticism we have to manage through, the fact that we have these fears that we're going to have to overcome to really become who we were meant to be. And I thought that you would really enjoy this book as well, hearing her story and hearing her amazing transformation. It's a fabulous book. It just came out. In fact, I think when I'm recording this, the audiobook, which she also narrates, has just come out. And for those of you who know me, you've heard the story before where my husband bought me a Fitbit because I'm spending too much time in front of the computer. And so now that I need to get my 10,000 steps every day, I need something to listen to. And so I am now a huge Audible fan. And I'll make sure that I leave a link below this video to the books if you love to buy physical books, but also to the audiobooks in case you want to listen to them as well. Another thing about Britt's book that's really amazing is I was listening to her on Amy Porterfield's recent podcast, which is Online Marketing Made Easy. And she had Britt on, and I was listening to it as I was driving back from San Francisco from visiting my dad. And I kept having to pull over. Luckily, I wasn't on the freeway, but I had to keep pulling over to take notes on some of the things that she was talking about and that she talks about in the book. And here's one quote that I have to share with you because I thought it was so incredibly profound. She asks us to ask ourselves, is your life a reflection of who you want to be or a reaction to people you don't want to upset? And I thought that that was just a really interesting way to sort of ask the question about, as we realize that life is short, especially in the times in which we live, are we in fact both becoming our best selves, trying to be our best selves, and even doing the work that we were meant to do? Now, of course, this wouldn't be an Anne LaFollette broadcast if I didn't have a book that was about either organization or systems or something like that as part of my 3 favorites right now. So the last book I want to talk about is Michael Hyatt's book that's called Free to Focus. And it is a systems book. It's about how to reorganize the way you spend your time, how to figure out how to eliminate tasks that are really, really not valuable, and to ensure that you actually can get more done in less time. And one of his big philosophies is the fact that, we all have this computer in our pocket now, which is our smartphone, with tons of apps on it. And while we may think that it's a productivity driver, it can actually be a rabbit hole, and it can be a distraction device and a device that actually derails us as opposed to helps us be more productive. His second key philosophy is the fact that a lot of productivity gurus try to help you figure out how to become more efficient so you can do more and more and more things in a given day. And his philosophy is really the opposite of that. It's figuring out what to focus on that's the most meaningful for you and is actually going to help you make progress faster in your creative journey or in your creative business. And it's actually by doing less and focusing on those big things that will help you get there faster. Now, Michael Hyatt is also the mastermind behind the planner that we just talked about when we were talking in my From Vision to Execution series, in the very last step of that 5-step process that we went through over the course of the past several weeks. And you can go back and watch all those videos right here on YouTube, and you can catch up if you missed it. But in step 5, I use his daily planner, which is called the Full Focus Planner. And I was already using the Full Focus Planner when I purchased his book. And he also was on Amy Porterfield's podcast. And so if you go to your podcasts and search for Online Marketing Made Easy with Amy Porterfield, you can search through her podcasts and find the most recent one where she had an interview with Michael Hyatt, and he talks about the book and does a brilliant overview of the book on that podcast interview. So go check that out. I'll make sure that there's a link below this video, not only to his book, And of course, his audiobook is also narrated by him, but I'll also make sure there's a link to that specific podcast to make it easy for you to find. Because it's a wonderful podcast, and I think that it will give you really, really deep insight into how valuable the book is. And then you can decide if you want to buy the book or get the audio version. Don't forget that every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, I am live on my Facebook page, Anne LaFollette Art. So I hope that you will mark your calendar and join me this week because we'll chat about these books. You can ask me questions, and I would love to see you there. So with that, I, of course, don't want you to forget to subscribe and to click the little bell so that you get a reminder when I have my next video. And I always like to say in closing that I am Anne LaFollette, and it's never too late to create. Bye for now, and I'll see you next week.